What if I told you 5 simple questions are quietly controlling your decisions, your emotions, and your self-worth every single day, and you don't even notice? By the end of this video, you'll spot these traps the moment they appear, and you'll never let anyone manipulate you again without even trying. If you want to stop getting pulled into manipulation, hit like and subscribe now, because the rest of this video will train your mind to detect influence before it even reaches you. The first manipulative question to watch for is the one that sounds harmless on the surface. Why are you doing it that way? At first glance, it appears innocent, even thoughtful, like someone is genuinely curious about your approach or perspective. But in reality, it's rarely about understanding. When asked by someone with manipulative intent, this question is a tool designed to destabilize your confidence and make you question your own judgment. The moment it lands, it plants a subtle seed of doubt in your mind, prompting thoughts like, "Am I doing this wrong? Should I have done it differently?" That tiny crack in your self-assurance is exactly where manipulation begins, because doubt opens the door to influence. You may feel the urge to justify yourself, explain your reasoning, or even apologize for choices that never needed validation in the first place. And that is precisely the manipulator's goal. They want you to hand over control without ever asking for it. The question works by exploiting your natural desire for approval and your instinct to avoid conflict, subtly steering you into defensiveness, self-criticism, or even second-guessing your own instincts. The power in this situation lies not in the question itself, but in your automatic reaction to it. By recognizing the intent behind the question, you create a mental pause, a space where you can choose your response rather than react impulsively. You can respond confidently without apology, deflect the question, or remain silent. And in doing so, you reclaim your authority over your own decisions. Awareness of this tactic transforms a seemingly innocent inquiry into a signal for caution and self-reflection, giving you the chance to remain in control rather than handing your power away. Every time you encounter this type of question, it's an opportunity to practice mental clarity, emotional regulation, and boundary setting, because manipulators rely on unexamined compliance to succeed. By seeing through the mechanism of this question, you make it ineffective, and each future attempt loses its grip over your confidence and decision-making, proving that awareness and deliberate response are the most powerful defenses against subtle manipulation. The second manipulative question to watch for is the seemingly casual, "Are you sure about that?" On the surface, it sounds like a gentle check-in, even a show of concern, but in the hands of a manipulator, it's a precision tool meant to destabilize your certainty and provoke self-doubt. The moment this question hits, it triggers an internal dialogue where your mind starts to second-guess every decision you've made leading up to that point. You might catch yourself thinking, "Maybe I missed something, maybe I'm wrong." And that hesitation is exactly the lever they are pulling. The manipulator doesn't actually need an answer. They're not seeking clarity or understanding. They're seeking compliance and emotional reaction. By casting doubt on your choices, they subtly erode your confidence, making you more likely to justify, explain, or even change your mind to satisfy their implied authority. It's a quiet form of pressure that operates below the surface of direct confrontation, and it's effective because most people respond instinctively rather than strategically, reacting to the implied judgment rather than the words themselves. Recognizing this tactic allows you to pause and reclaim control over your own judgment, because the power lies not in the question, but in your response. You can respond with calm assurance, a simple, "Yes, I am," or even redirect without defensiveness, signaling that your choices are your own and not up for manipulation. The moment you step back from the instinct to justify or over-explain, the manipulator loses influence, because their strategy depends on you handing over your mental authority. Awareness of these subtle cues trains your mind to spot manipulation before it takes root, and repeated practice builds resilience, so that every time someone asks, "Are you sure about that?" you meet it with clarity, confidence, and control. Over time, this strengthens your ability to navigate interactions strategically, ensuring that doubt and uncertainty no longer become automatic levers of influence in the hands of others, and every attempt to undermine your certainty is met with the quiet force of self-assurance and deliberate response. The third manipulative question to watch for is the deceptively simple, "Don't you think you should?" At first glance, it may appear as friendly advice, concern, or guidance, but its true purpose is far more strategic. It is a subtle way to pressure you into agreement, compliance, or self-doubt without direct confrontation. The moment this question is posed, it triggers a psychological mechanism that almost automatically makes you evaluate your own actions against someone else's implied standard. It frames your decision as potentially flawed or insufficient, even if there is nothing wrong with it, creating a sense of obligation to explain, defend, or adjust your behavior. This is classic manipulation. It makes you feel like you are falling short, that your judgment is questionable, and that the manipulator knows better even if they don't. The genius of this tactic is in its indirectness. It rarely feels aggressive, so your emotional guard is lowered, and you are more likely to respond without critical awareness. Many people react by over-explaining, justifying their choices, or hesitating in a way that gives away confidence, and that hesitation is exactly the lever the manipulator is seeking to exploit. Recognizing this question for what it is allows you to pause and respond intentionally rather than reactively. You can acknowledge it without conceding, say nothing at all, or answer confidently with clarity, signaling that your decisions are your own and not up for negotiation. By doing so, you reclaim your authority over your actions and prevent the manipulator from gaining control over your thoughts and behavior. The key is awareness. Once you notice the pattern, you realize that the question is less about advice and more about influence, and the manipulator's power begins to dissolve. Every time someone asks, "Don't you think you should?" it is an opportunity to strengthen your ability to maintain composure, make deliberate choices, and assert boundaries without confrontation. The more you practice this, the less impact such questions have, and your confidence becomes a shield, ensuring that subtle attempts at manipulation no longer disrupt your decision-making or undermine your self-assurance, allowing you to navigate interactions with clarity, authority, and unwavering control. The fourth manipulative question to watch for is the emotionally loaded, "Why didn't you?" At first, it may seem like a harmless inquiry or a simple curiosity about your actions, but it is often designed to trigger guilt, shame, or defensiveness. The moment it is asked, it immediately casts your past decisions in a negative light, implying that you have done something wrong, neglected a responsibility, or failed in some way, even if that isn't true. The psychological effect is subtle but powerful. It pulls your attention inward, making you focus on perceived mistakes and shortcomings instead of maintaining confidence in your choices. Manipulators use this type of question to provoke an emotional reaction, because the more you feel guilty, defensive, or apologetic, the more control they gain over your mind and your behavior. You may find yourself explaining, rationalizing, or defending your actions in a way that feeds their agenda, giving away authority over your own narrative. Recognizing the manipulative intent behind this question allows you to pause, detach, and regain control. You can respond calmly, affirm your choice without over-explaining, or even redirect the conversation, signaling that you are aware of the tactic and unwilling to hand over your emotional energy. The power lies in your reaction. Once you stop internalizing the implied judgment, the question loses its ability to manipulate. Over time, repeated exposure to these patterns, paired with deliberate, composed responses, strengthens your ability to remain grounded and assertive, even when confronted with emotionally charged questioning. By identifying the subtle mechanics of "why didn't you?" you transform a potential vulnerability into a practice of mental discipline, reinforcing your boundaries and protecting your decision-making process. Each encounter becomes an opportunity to exercise control, clarity, and emotional resilience, and as your awareness grows, manipulative attempts that once provoked guilt or hesitation now bounce off harmlessly. This ensures that your confidence, judgment, and personal authority remain intact, preventing anyone from leveraging your emotions to influence your actions and allowing you to navigate even the most emotionally loaded interactions with calm, deliberate, and unshakable clarity. The fifth manipulative question to watch for is the insidious, "What will everyone think?" On the surface, it appears to be a casual or even considerate inquiry, suggesting that someone is concerned about social perception or reputation. But in reality, it is a subtle lever of influence aimed at fear, obligation, and conformity. The moment this question is asked, it shifts your focus from your own judgment, values, and priorities to the imagined opinions of others, forcing you into a mental space where external validation feels necessary. Manipulators use this tactic because most people instinctively care about approval and belonging, so by invoking everyone, they trigger anxiety, hesitation, and self-doubt, even when no real social consequence exists. This type of question is not about gathering information. It is about creating pressure, prompting you to adjust your decisions, behaviors, or emotions to fit an imagined standard. Responding without awareness often leads to over-explaining, self-justification, or bending to the manipulator's desires, giving them control without ever stating a demand. The key to neutralizing it lies in recognizing the mechanism. The question is a distraction from your own authority and a redirection of your attention to others' perceived judgments. By pausing, reflecting, and responding from a place of confidence rather than fear, you reclaim power. A simple, composed response, or even choosing silence, signals that your choices are guided by your own principles, not by external pressure or imagined consensus. Awareness of this tactic transforms it from a trap into an opportunity for mental discipline and boundary setting, reinforcing your independence and clarity. Every time someone asks, "What will everyone think?" it is an invitation to practice detachment, assert your judgment, and refuse manipulation. Over time, this strengthens resilience and reinforces that external perceptions are irrelevant to your decisions unless you choose them to matter. By maintaining clarity, focus, and self-assurance, the manipulator's influence dissolves, leaving you fully in control of your thoughts, actions, and responses, and ensuring that fear of social judgment no longer dictates your behavior or undermines your confidence, creating an unshakable foundation of personal authority and mental freedom. The sixth manipulative question to watch for is the deceptively casual, "Why can't you just?" On the surface, it may seem like a simple request or a plea for cooperation, but in reality, it's a psychological trap designed to provoke guilt, frustration, and self-blame. The moment it's asked, it implies that your behavior or choices are irrational, inconvenient, or unreasonable, suggesting that compliance with their demand is the natural, obvious, or expected response. This creates an invisible pressure to justify yourself, to explain why you can't, or worse, to change your actions to avoid conflict or disappointment. Manipulators love this question because it attacks your autonomy without ever explicitly telling you what to do. It relies entirely on your internal reaction to the implied criticism. Most people instinctively react with defensiveness, explanation, or even apologies, handing the manipulator control over the conversation and often over their own decisions. Recognizing the intent behind "Why can't you just?" allows you to pause and reclaim authority over your choices. You can respond calmly, set a boundary, or answer succinctly without over-explaining, signaling that your decisions are yours alone and that you will not be swayed by implied judgment or pressure. The strength of this question lies in its subtlety. It never demands. It only suggests inadequacy, but awareness transforms it from a trap into a test of your emotional resilience and clarity. Each time you encounter it, it becomes an opportunity to reinforce boundaries, assert independence, and practice deliberate response over reactive behavior. Over time, recognizing the mechanics behind this question diminishes its power because the manipulator's influence relies entirely on your automatic compliance. By stepping back, observing the tactic, and responding intentionally, You neutralize the pressure, protect your confidence, and ensure that no subtle form of coercion can dictate your actions, emotions, or self-perception, leaving you fully in control of your decisions and immune to manipulation disguised as casual inquiry. The seventh manipulative question to watch for is the loaded, "Why do you always?" On the surface, it may seem like a casual observation or even a genuine attempt to understand a pattern, but in reality, it is a subtle weapon of emotional influence designed to provoke defensiveness and guilt. The moment this question is posed, it frames your behavior as repetitive, problematic, or flawed, whether or not that's true, and it encourages you to explain, justify, or defend yourself. The word always is the manipulator's secret weapon. It exaggerates your actions, making a single incident feel like a consistent failure, which triggers self-doubt and a need to correct or defend yourself. Most people respond instinctively, either by explaining, rationalizing, or feeling shame. And that emotional reaction is exactly what the manipulator wants because it shifts power from you to them without any direct confrontation. Recognizing this tactic allows you to step back and evaluate the question's intent rather than the implication. You can pause, detach, and respond intentionally, either by calmly stating the facts, refusing to engage in self-blame, or redirecting the conversation, signaling that your decisions and behaviors are yours and not up for manipulation. The manipulator relies on your automatic reaction to maintain influence, so by breaking that pattern, you reclaim authority over your emotional and mental state. Every time you encounter a question that begins with, "Why do you always?" it's an opportunity to strengthen resilience, maintain clarity, and practice deliberate, controlled responses rather than succumbing to guilt or defensiveness. Awareness of the manipulative mechanics behind this question diminishes its power because the effectiveness of the tactic depends entirely on your reaction. Over time, repeated practice transforms encounters with this type of question into exercises in boundary setting, emotional regulation, and self-confidence, ensuring that no one can exploit exaggeration or implication to manipulate your thoughts, emotions, or behavior. Recognizing it is not paranoia, it's a shield, and every calm, deliberate response strengthens your control, clarity, and personal authority in every interaction. The eighth manipulative question to watch for is the emotionally charged, "Why can't you be more like?" At first, it may appear like a comparison or even constructive feedback, but its real purpose is to provoke insecurity, shame, and self-doubt while subtly shifting your behavior to meet someone else's expectations. The moment this question is asked, it frames your natural choices, habits, or personality traits as inadequate, implying that you are failing because you are not living up to some imagined standard. This instantly triggers a comparison mindset, pulling your attention away from your own values and priorities and redirecting it toward the manipulator's agenda. Most people instinctively respond by trying to explain themselves, justify their differences, or even modify their behavior to fit the implied ideal, which is precisely what the manipulator wants. They gain control over your emotions and actions without explicitly demanding it. The danger is subtle but powerful. It erodes confidence and fosters internalized criticism, which can create long-term patterns of self-doubt. Recognizing the tactic behind this question allows you to pause, detach, and respond strategically. You can assert your individuality confidently, refuse to engage in self-comparison, or redirect the conversation without apology, signaling that your choices and identity are yours alone. The power of this question lies entirely in your reaction. The manipulator relies on your automatic emotional response to maintain influence. Awareness and deliberate response turn this question from a trap into an opportunity for boundary setting and self-affirmation. Each encounter is a chance to reinforce self-respect, emotional resilience, and clarity, ensuring that subtle comparisons no longer affect your confidence or decision-making. Over time, repeated practice neutralizes this tactic, leaving you fully in control of your thoughts, actions, and self-perception by meeting "Why can't you be more like?" With calm awareness and intentional response, you reclaim authority over your identity, refuse external pressure to conform, and protect your mental and emotional freedom from anyone attempting to manipulate you through implied judgment or comparison, creating an unshakable foundation of personal power, clarity, and self-assurance.